Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next Foreman community demo. Your host, Ken Gilvin, here as always, and it's gonna be a little bit quieter today. I don't think we were ever gonna quite reach the same level of the packed demo that we had last time. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of good fun, and we're gonna see what we're gonna do. The usual things will apply. Do remember to up the quality of your video stream so that you can see the text from the presenters. As always, we don't have any control over the default quality of the stream. Very, very annoying, but that's it. Do remember to join in. We are on IRC, we are on Google Live Chat. I will be monitoring both those channels. If you have questions for the presenters or comments in general, or you want to ask some questions of me if we have time at the end, feel free. We can do, there's always time for a bit of AMA if there's nothing else to do. So join in with the show and let us know what you think. So what have we got to talk about today? Well, first things first, we're going to talk about a bit of a roundup. It was our birthday last month. As I spent like 3 months talking about this, right? So you're probably sick and tired of me talking about this now. But we had some parties. We had one in Brno, we had one in Nuremberg, we had one in Antwerp, we had at least a talk in Raleigh, and a little bit of online stuff as well. So that was lovely. If you took part in any of that, fantastic. Thank you very much. If you couldn't make it, put it in your calendar for next year. July in general, there will be stuff happening. But also have a look at the mailing list, because at least Avud has put up a summary of some of the things he talked about in Nuremberg, and I'm hoping that some of the other people who went will do the same, because it's not fair to exclude people who couldn't make it, right? I mean, the hallway track is always the best track, but you've got to circulate that to the wider community afterwards. So please go and jump. If you were at an event, go and tell us your thoughts, stick up a event report, and if you weren't there, then come along and have a read and add your thoughts. Today, we're going to be talking about permissions. We're going to talk about remote execution. We're going to talk about ActiveJob. We're going to talk a bit about Hammer as well. Sorry, I meant to show you this. There's also a picture. This is the picture from Nuremberg. So this is what you can expect at a Foreman party, i.e. pizza, just saying. But sadly, you've missed it for this year. But hey, there's always next year. So yes, we've got permissions, remote execution, ActiveJob, all these wonderful things. I'm just going to see if my other presenter has arrived, because sadly he wasn't here when we started. Oh, he has. Fantastic. So we're gonna kick off with Marek then, if he's ready to go, and give us some permissions updates.
All right. So I hope you can see my screen now and you can hear me.
We can. Yes.
Right. So I'm going to start. So today I'm going to show you a new addition that we will see in Foreman 1.16 and might have a huge impact, not only for plugin authors, but
maybe a touch bigger.
Yep. Is it better now?
Yeah, that's probably okay.
Okay. Basically what I'm going to show is that now we have a way to set up the granular permissions also for creating and editing. So just so you understand, I had a role in here created, which is called limited. And what I'm trying to achieve is actually letting user to manage, let's say, domains. And I want these permissions to be trimmed a bit. So to do that, I just set up a filter. I add all the permissions in here, and I can specify the granular filter in here. So just for a demo purpose, I can do something like this. It actually means that all permissions selected in here will be granted, but they will only allow user to do these operations on domains that are matching this search filter. So basically all domains that start with the name example. As you can see from this, I hope you can see the auto suggestion. There are more domains, like including redhat.com. So that's not some that would be matching this filter. So originally, or the behavior before the change was that this granular or this condition was applied only to view and destroy permissions. Now we also are able to enforce that for creating and editing. I'm going to demonstrate it so it's more clear, and then I explain how it works. So I'm saving this filter. So a limited role, which just so that you can trust me, is assigned to the user called RS. So he has the role. I'm going to switch to a different browser. So here I put him as the user. The user should have permissions for domains. As you can see, he can only see these domains that matches the example and wildcard character. And now if I I'll try to create a domain that doesn't match the criteria, like let's say something.com. And I also need to select the location. So if I'm trying to create this in Foreman Mob 15 and all the older version, it would actually work and create a domain that exceeds the filter. And what's even worse, I wouldn't see it in the list because I don't have a permission to view something that doesn't match the pattern. But in this case, when I do submit, it actually tells me that I don't have a permission to create domains with attributes that I've used. And this took us so long because there was a technical limitation why we couldn't do this before. And that's because we are using actually the SQL or let's say the database to do the verification. And for that, we actually need to have the object saved in database. So the way how it works today, we start a transaction, we try to save the object, and after it exists in the database, we check whether the permission applies to that existing object in database. And if it does not, we just roll back the whole transaction. So that's something that might have an impact also on plugins. When we merged that, we made sure that Catello and Foreman tasks tests were green. I've heard already the Discovery plugin was unfortunately affected by that. If you have that kind of issue, feel free to ping me. I'll try to help resolve that. Usually it means that there was a buggy behavior in the plugin itself, and we relied on the behavior that we are actually not enforcing these permissions. Usually what happens or what helps is run that piece of code under admin user or set the permissions properly. And I think that's about it, just so that you know that also works on existing domains. So previously you could also take this domain and rename it to something.not, but now the location is set. So now when I click submit, I get the same for persisted objects. And you can see that we print the edit domains instead of create domains permissions. And I think that's it.
Super, that's really nice. If there's time, I might ask you about how we did that, like the technical limitation. I've had to mute you, I'm sorry, because I was getting an echo. But yeah, we might. There's no questions from anybody else at the moment, but maybe if we have time at the end, I might come back to that. I'm quite curious about the sort of technical implementation of that, but it's almost sort of deep dive material, so I'll leave it to the end and we'll see how we go. So in the meantime, we're going to move on. It's going to be Adam who's going to talk. We've got a couple of remote execution updates. The first one's from Adam. So asynchronous SSH, Adam, what are we on about here?
Hello. So let me share my screen. First, a bit of background how remote execution works. Basically, we just trigger the remote script on the remote host, and the script runs there, and we periodically read output from the connection, and we keep it open during the entire execution. This can be bad if the connection between the Glenfall core and the remote host is slow or bad or something. To tackle this, we chose a polling approach. So I switch to my terminal. Here I have a job which runs for 30 seconds, and every second it prints a number. So I start it, and we can see in the top left corner that the SSH connection was opened and now it closed. Here we can see that on the remote host, the script runs, the sleep is still ticking. And in a while, we should get a bunch of output here, which would mean, yes, here we go. We checked for the status of the remote job. We can see that we opened another SSH connection and we closed it again. And what happened now, there is a way for the script running on the remote host to let us know that it has finished. So it let us know, and we opened another connection, checked for its status, read the output, and the job was done. We can now take a look at the output just to check, yes, it's complete, it counted to 30. And I probably won't be getting into more technical details unless anyone wants. So that would be about it from me.
Nice and simple, straightforward. This is going to be a very quick demo if you all do this, by the way. Okay, no, that's cool. I'll just have a quick look, but given that your entire segment was probably less than the YouTube delay, I'll probably have to come back to you. So let's carry on with some more remote execution updates. So I'll switch back to the slides so that I can actually link to that later. So Ivan, more remote execution stuff.
Okay, so I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah.
So I would like to talk about two issues that were collected in remote execution. We had in some situations we could get in the state that the job invocation or the remote execution job got in a state that it was hard to cancel that. One of the situations that could lead to this was actually restarting the Rails server. So what could happen was that, let's say I rerun some job, and let's say I ping the Foreman org 20 times, or let's ping it 30 times. So when I run that, everything's running, but when I, for some reason, restart the web server and start it again, in the past, the task that was handling the execution itself, and we need to wait for it to start again, was got into post state, and it was not possible to cancel it from there, or kind of handle that from its side. But you could see there was post state, and it got again into running, which means that we are now, even after restart, we are controlling the job and execution, and we can operate it as it was run at the beginning. So it was pretty annoying, and I'm glad that mostly Adam did work here to handle this better. Another thing was that helped is when we cancel a job, we always try to first go to the remote host to kill the script if it's running, but sometimes again the remote host might not be even running again, and then it makes it hard to reach to it. But therefore there's the other job, which is more forceful way of marking the job as cancelled. So when I do that, we still try to go to the I was too quick, but if I run again, we still try to go and cancel the remote job, but we are not waiting for the job to finish or to accept our cancel request, and we just mark the job as done. We are not dealing with it anymore. So that's one nice change, especially when you got in a state where the job invocation it was in some non-standard state. This will definitely be something that you might be interested in. So nice and simple. Let's end on the demo.
Super. That's really nice. Again, I don't see any questions. So that's where we're at. So next up, I believe we've got Tomasz, who's going to talk to us about new options in Hammer.
Hello. Yes, I've shared my screen, so hopefully you can see it. Before I start with a new feature in Hammer CLI experimental plugin, I wanted to announce that a new version of Hammer CLI and Hammer CLI Foreman plugin was released a couple of days ago. It contains a nice portion of bug fixes, as you can see, especially for Hammer CLI Foreman. The list is quite long, so check it out for details. What's been fixed. Apart from the bug fixes, it contains several usability improvements in sessions, and also a full help command that I showed last time here at the demo as a part of the Hammer CLI experimental. This is now part of Hammer, so it was transferred. It's the first command that was transferred from the experimental plugin to the core. It still remains in the experimental plugin for those that want to use it with older versions of Hammer, but those that have standard installations will also find it there and can enjoy the functionality. And the new feature that I actually wanted to show today is flag --debug that Hammer CLI experimental adds. As everything in the experimental plugin, it needs to be enabled in a config if you want to use that. And it adds 4 breakpoints in Hammer because standard Hammer command contains it has an execute method, which is the main body of the command, and most of Hammer commands collect the options from the user, transform it to parameters that are then sent to the API, and response of the API can then again be transferred into something that Hammer can print output more easily. And also when something goes wrong, we have a part where exceptions are handled. And these 4 places are the most common for debugging. And when I'm either developing a new feature or debugging some issue that lands in readmine, I often found myself putting pry breakpoint at that places. So this feature adds option --debug that makes this easier. There are 4 places where to put the debug option, as I mentioned. So if I do Hammer, let's say OS list with the debug option and give it the execute, it will stop at the main method and invoke a pry session. So this code that you see here is actually a wrapper method that comes from the experimental plugin, and so you need to do 1 step to get into that place that's actually want to debug. So here you can see the execute method of the list plugin, and I can easily debug it with next, as we know it with pry. I will continue. There are more places. There's the params and transform result. I won't show all of them. I will probably show the handle exception because this one is interesting. I will try to do OS create without any parameter and should create a missing parameter exception. And you will see that again, it gets me into handle exception wrapper. So when I do step, I'm in the Hammer's handle exception method, where I can just step check what handler is called, and I can also check what is the actual exception. This is very useful for debugging of some errors that are not handled properly in Hammer. So this --debug is actually automatically added to every command that's in Hammer with this feature enabled. So it should be available for all commands that are there. And that's about it.
That is superb. And can we have that everywhere else? There's so many places where we end up digging into things, right? So that's really useful dev tool. So thank you very much for showing that off, Tomasz. So people go play with it. Hammer itself, I think, is a good place for it, but if we could get that in other places as well, that would be wonderful. So obviously, for something that's running a web server, it's a little bit harder to figure out how you're going to get connected to the price session, but still. So just some feedback on one of the previous sections. So Marek was asking Ivan how destructive the cancel job button is in the previous segment. The answer is pretty destructive because it actually kills off the remote scripts. It's also worth noting the difference between cancel and abort. One does, abort doesn't wait. I've got it right way around. Abort doesn't wait for the threads to return, so you can just go, no, I'm done with this. So if you're gonna make use of that, just be aware that I mean, it's red for a reason, right? It is pretty destructive, just so you know. Okay, so with that, I think we'll move forward. So Daniel's up next. He's going to talk to us about a new, I think it's fair to say this is a new backend for plugins, right? New way of scheduling things.
Okay, so are you able to see my screen?
Yes, although it is incredibly tiny font.
I know. Okay. So
yeah, you'll get away with that. That's fine.
This, all right. So I was actually working on. I was using ActiveJob right now to move some of the things that Marek did in the past, like importing reports asynchronously and classes, and it took me literally about how long this demo took. So I'll be showing this now as well. So ActiveJob, first of all, it's part of Rails 4.2. And what it is, it's basically an API for having queues on your application in which you can put things on to be scheduled to be run later. Now, the problem that we had with ActiveJob in the past is that Rails was providing this very simple API to make any action on your application asynchronous, but TimeFlow didn't support it. And TimeFlow is basically our executor, so we needed TimeFlow to support ActiveJob as or actually the other way around. ActiveJob needed to be supported by TimeFlow. It has support for several famous executors. Now one of them is TimeFlow. So the way, don't worry about the way TimeFlow is executed because it's the same as it was with Foreman tasks. You can run it in a separate executor. I have 3 different TimeFlow executors running here just to show how it works. And then I also have Rails console here on the left-hand side of this console. So it's a total of 4 executors. The way it works is basically on your Foreman application, now you have a jobs folder in which you may have whatever job you want to create. So just for the sake of simplicity, I created this sample job, which shows a few of the ActiveJob APIs so that you can see how it's used. So first and foremost, the most important thing is the perform method. The perform method, what it does is simply run this. So run whatever you have in here. You can pass any arbitrary number of arguments to the perform method. So you may have, here we just have a message, but we could have, I don't know, whatever else. And whatever is in this block is what is going to be enqueued and put into the TimeFlow executor. Now we have a bunch of callbacks here. The perform, wow, sorry for the noise. The perform related methods are methods that, callbacks, sorry, that run just before the task is about to be executed, and after it's executed, in the enqueue, so before and after enqueue run before it's enqueued or after it's enqueued. So the perform methods would run in the executor, and the enqueue methods would run directly in whatever thread you're enqueuing your job. So I'll show you how this works in the console for just a sample job, and then I'll show you what I did to import classes, import reports asynchronously, because you'll see it was very simple. So the way you are able to use ActiveJob is basically you use the name of the class, simple job, and then you have a method, perform now, if you just want to run the method now. The first argument is the first argument to the perform method here. So I just have a perform now ABC, and it's going to run in some executor. Very simple, didn't really show anything here. Now, we also have the perform later, which, as you can see, it enqueued the task. Then we have some output from Dimeflow here. Then we know the task was enqueued. And this is nice because at each of these points, we can put, maybe we can block our task to not be enqueued if something has not happened. Or maybe right after it's enqueued, we may want to enqueue something else. Think about things like cron jobs and so forth. Okay, so now it's enqueued, and it probably just ran in some other executor. So let's go here. Yeah, it was ABC. I have these 3 executors here. This is where it ran. Now, if you just don't want to perform, so perform later just runs whenever the executor gets a chance. Let's say your executor is flooded with tasks from, I don't know, maybe you have 1,000 hosts, and you want to import hosts. So you want to import reports from all of them at the same time. It will just pick up whichever executor is free. Now, if you have some other task, like, I don't know, maybe you want to send report emails or things like that, what you may want to do is just use this, set wait, and then the unit of time that you want to wait. So I only want to wait 5 seconds. And let's say, hello, Foreman users. So now we see it's enqueued, and I am guessing it's going to run in one of these 3 executors. Let's wait for the 5 seconds. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say. It ran on the console executor. Okay, so I forgot to say Dimeflow. They just told me before the demo, but Dimeflow only checks for jobs every 15 seconds. So 5 seconds wouldn't do any good, but I don't think anyone would be using this outside of any demo. A more realistic thing would be to maybe wait 1 week to perform later a job that sends email, or I don't know, maybe syncs repositories, things like that. As you can see, it's very simple right there. Now let's go to the report controller to see what I did. Now, okay, I hope the size is fine, but essentially in the create method here, we have a perform, in the create method here, we used to have this. Let me go back in time. So we used to have just this config report, import the config report and the ID. So I simply created the job. The job here is called import config report. And it takes 2 arguments, the report and the proxy. And I literally just copied this line here to the perform method. Now, let's go back to the future. I only call import config report perform later with the parameters that I was passing to the method. And I also added some exception handling here and just a login message here. So with very, very little work, or almost no work at all, we moved this action to be completely asynchronous. And that is what I had, I think. Oh, yeah, I'm just seeing Ohad's comment up here. Yeah, all of the jobs have a job ID, which I am printing here. Let's actually see it in the console. So this is what we get. Let's save the job. So our jobs have arguments, job ID, which is the ID in Dimeflow. The queue name, so far, Dimeflow only supports one queue as far as I know, so you won't be able to queue in different queues. And if you scheduled it for a certain point in time, you have the timestamp of whenever it's going to be run. And that's all I have. Since I saw it was very simple to do this, I hope I'll be submitting these changes to config report and public class importer today.
That's really nice. That's really, really nice. Presumably this is available to plugins as well, right?
Yeah, both core and plugins can use it. And there is no requirement on Foreman tasks, by the way. If you use this, you don't need to make your plugin dependent on Foreman tasks.
That's really cool because, for example, I've been playing with Salt recently, and Salt does have a dependency on Foreman tasks for importing the reports. This is exactly what it does. Because of the way Salt the system set up, there's a cron job on the Salt master that uploads the reports every 10 minutes, and so it uses Foreman tasks to shove that onto a backend and process them. So this would obviously simplify the plugin massively. So that's very, very cool. So that's from 1.16.
Yeah, that's for 1.16. So far there are no jobs, but the framework is there, so plugins should be able to use it, and maybe some job might even make it to 1.16. We don't know yet.
Right. Okay. Fair.
Right. I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So that actually brings an interesting point, Greg, that you mentioned the Salt plugin. So imagine we have different report importers. So what would be the recommended way if there's a, let's say, core job that imports stuff, and from plugin you would like to extend that job? What would be the recommendation how to extend existing active jobs?
Okay, so I think it's the same as any other class in Ruby. You would just create some concern, and then in the engine declaration, you might extend the original job using the concern. So yeah, it's the same as any other Ruby class.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Of course, I mean, it all depends on whether you need to at all, right? You can always write your own. You don't want to, but you can. So that's very cool. I think Ohad wanted to know if can you get those task IDs back as a response? So like if you submit a job via the API, you get that task ID back.
Yeah, you get the task back. However, so far, it is kind of useless though, because in here, I am returning the job ID, and okay, maybe this message is not very accurate because it says see the task with this job ID, but jobs, they do have an ID. It's the same ID as tasks have. It's created by Dimeflow, but the problem we have is that we have not merged the changes in Dimeflow yet. Sorry, in Foreman tasks to show these jobs. So if you submit something that would be asynchronous, you should be able to get back an ID, but you would have no place to check for that status other than the Dimeflow console maybe. And yeah, just the Dimeflow console and the Rails console. So maybe something that I could try to see if we can do is have an API endpoint for seeing the status of jobs or something like that. I'm not really sure how to deal with that.
I think at least an API would be good, because I mean, if if you're submitting something over the API, you want to be able to get a status over the API as well. Particularly, I mean, for something like config reports, I don't think it's so important. But your example of putting something a week into the future, you want to kind of know the situation of that at some point, right? You want to maybe check on it. Also, and I can also see this being hooked into the notification system as well. So, you know, if I schedule something in a week's time, I probably want to know that it ran, or I might want to know that it ran anyway. It depends on the job, right? But
yeah, so you would know that it runs. The issue is that, let's say, so these, let's say that this doesn't, maybe it's enqueued properly, but then someone restarts the server or whatever. These things are in the memory of the executor right now. So they are not really that permanent, I think. So you would know that it was enqueued, but you didn't know that someone restarted the executor. So your job is not going to be executed without, and you don't even know about it. That's, I think, problem to solve.
Well, yeah, indeed. But I mean, in most cases where you have a job system, you have a way to check up on a job at least, right? Just in case you're paranoid or something. So yeah, that would probably be a good addition. But, you know, I mean, it's work in progress, right? But it's still very, very nice. And I can see it simplifying a lot of things. So yeah, cool. Okay, I think we've run out of questions for that. But it is super. I'll have got another one. Yeah, it's a good point. So if this is being stored in memory, what does that happen for things in the future? Can you not restart the server, for example? You're going to lose all your jobs if you restart the server?
If I'm not wrong, yes, but it's been it's been some time since I did this test. I don't really remember, but I think it's all in memory. So
I would say, or if it's kept on the default setting of the dime flow, or how the format has done, it's using the same persistence as the Rails application, so it should be database backed. That's like the point of the dime flow, being able to serialize the task and survive the restart. So unless there was change,
Cool.
Okay,
that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
We may be able to answer. Sorry.
No, carry on. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah, we may be able to answer actually just by looking at dime flow at the persistence here. Sorry, Rails.
I think we're probably getting really right down into the details now. It was just an interesting point about restarts, because that's at least a high level thing we can tell people to watch out for when they try and use the feature. But if we get down into nitty gritty, and we're talking deep dive material, right? I mean, even if it were stored in memory, it'd be fine for like just queuing as soon as an execute is free, like config imports, right? You just get on with it. So this is cool. Okay, well, thanks so much, Daniel. That's really awesome. I'm definitely interested in playing with that. It's for some of the things that I work on, so that's very cool. So finally then, I've got a piece, or at least someone in the community has a piece, but they can't be here today, so they've asked me to show this off. So Martin Castle came into the IRC channel a few days ago. He's looking for testers for his new plugin. So he's written a realm provider for the proxy for ActiveDirectory. So if you're using ActiveDirectory and not with something like FreeIPA, so just pure ActiveDirectory, then he would like for people to go out and try this and to report bugs. So the GitHub repo is there, Smart Proxy Realm AD plugin, and I will make sure that link goes into the show notes at the end as well, so you can have something clickable. But he is very keen to have testers on this. So if you have any chance to play that, I personally don't have any Windows machines, so I can't show it off or anything like that. But I did at least promise him that I would try and give it a mention. So there we go. So that's a really quick piece. And that, I think, brings us to the end. There was a few things that we wanted to show that we didn't quite get in, so they'll be on next time's demo. There's still time before 1.16 to show you all the things that are coming. It's not a problem. So tune in next time for some exciting stuff there. In the meantime, however, thanks very much for watching. It has been a pleasure to have you with us today. Do take care and do follow us in the future if you want to see more of this kind of things. And bye-bye.